Wow, it's kind of amazing when you think about it. Back in the 1500s, miners in Mexico's Temascaltepec district, they were pulling out ore just incredibly rich in silver.
Yeah, practically falling over it.
Exactly. And now, that same area is getting a lot of attention again. Okay, let's dig into this. We're doing a deep dive today on Sierra Madre Gold and Silver.
Hmm?
And you've given us some great source material to work with their corporate presentations, a detailed technical report on the La Guitarra project, a recent YouTube interview, which was quite interesting, and the latest financial news releases.
Right, a good mix to get a full picture.
So our mission here is pretty clear. We want to really understand Sierra Madre from all angles. We're looking at their projects, who's running the show, what resources they actually have, their financial health, key partnerships, and any analysis out there.
And ultimately try to figure out, is there an undervaluation story here? What's the potential upside?
Precisely. Think of this as your fast track to getting a solid grasp on Sierra Madre, cutting through maybe some of the noise out there.
Okay, sounds good. Where should we start? Maybe the people behind it.
Good idea. Because when we're looking at potential undervaluation in junior miners, the management team it's crucial, isn't it?
Absolutely fundamental. And the info you shared, it really emphasizes their track record. These aren't rookies. They have a history of finding good projects,
Uh-huh.
advancing them, and actually monetizing them, both in Mexico and, globally. That kind of experience is, frankly, invaluable in this sector.
Yeah, you can't really overstate that. And it's not just the management team itself, right? Looking at who actually owns the company, that paints a picture too.
Definitely.
First Majestic Silver holding, what is it, 44.5%? That's a massive stake.
Huge. That's a serious commitment from a major established silver producer. It signals real confidence.
And then you add in institutional investors with nearly 13% and management and founders holding almost 25%.
Right, so you've got strong alignment there. Management's interests are tied directly to shareholder success, and you have a major industry player deeply invested alongside them.
It sort of de-risks things a bit, doesn't it, compared to maybe some other juniors out there.
It certainly adds a layer of credibility and potential strategic support, yeah.
Yeah.
Access to expertise, maybe even future financing options. It's a significant advantage.
Okay, so let's pivot to the assets. La Guitarra. That's the main focus right now, it seems.
It is. It's their flagship project.
The technical report places it in that historic Temascaltepec district we mentioned, about 70 kilometers from Toluca, 130 kilometers from Mexico City, and, importantly, accessible by paved road.
Which is a big deal for logistics. Getting equipment in, product out, it makes a huge difference. No need to build miles of new road through difficult terrain.
And the land package itself, it's not small.
No, it's substantial. 43 exploitation concessions covering almost 40,000 hectares. Those concessions are basically the legal rights to mine.
And they're all in good standing, some dating back quite a ways to the 80s. It shows they have a long-term hold on this ground.
Exactly. And it's in a district with proven production history.
Right. And permits. They seem to have the key ones already.
Yeah, the report indicates they possess the necessary permits for the current mining and processing plans. Operating licenses, water use, environmental authorizations for the main mines, La Guitarra, Coloso, Nazareno,
Uh-huh.
plus exploration permits for other areas too, like Jalacotal, Troncas. And that approval for dry stack tailings is also notable.
Why is that significant, the dry stack tailings?
Well, from an environmental standpoint, it's generally seen as a more stable and water-efficient way to manage mine waste compared to traditional slurry tailings dams.
Yeah.
It reduces risks and the long-term environmental footprint. So it's a positive from an ESG perspective.
Got it. Okay. And this district, Temascaltepec, has a rich history.
Oh yeah. Mid-1500s beginnings. It was apparently the third largest silver producer in Mexico at one point. Modern mining picked back up around 1990. So La Guitarra isn't some brand new, untested concept. There's a long history of pulling metal out of the ground here.
But right now, the mine itself is on care and maintenance.
That's right. It's not actively producing commercial quantities at this moment, but the key infrastructure is there.
Like what specifically?
You've got the flotation mill, that's the processing plant, offices, warehouses, workshops, even their own lab. The report does flag some deferred maintenance needed, replacing liners, fixing flotation cells, pumps, that kind of thing.
Standard stuff for a facility on care and maintenance, I suppose.
Pretty much. But the core components are there. And the plant capacity mentioned in the presentation. That's quite interesting.
Yeah, what were the numbers?
Flotation at 1,200 tons per day, stated capacity, though it last ran closer to 400. Crushing at 640 TPD, grinding at 516 TPD. They're actively looking at ways to boost that capacity too.
So the potential is there to ramp up significantly once they decide to flip the switch back on for commercial production?
Exactly. And the recent news suggests that's the plan for 2025. Plus, the fact they managed to restart the high-grade underground mine, apparently ahead of schedule, that's a really positive operational sign.
Shows they can execute. Okay, what about the geology? What kind of deposit are we talking about?
It's described as low sulfidation epithermal deposits. Basically, think of veins carrying gold and silver, often formed relatively close to the surface.
And there are a lot of them.
Over 100 identified veins across 5 main systems, according to the report. It forms a belt about 4 kilometers wide, stretching over 15 kilometers. That's a lot of potential plumbing for mineralization.
15 kilometers. Wow. Now, you mentioned something about a new interpretation. That sounded significant.
Yeah, this is potentially really key for the upside case.
Yeah.
Based on their drilling back in 2011, their geological team developed a new structural model. It suggests that the main structures, the Dos Hornos structures, are open along strike.
Meaning they could continue further than previously thought.
Potentially, yes.
Leh.
A lot further. The comparison they make is stark. Historically, they were looking at maybe 3.5 kilometers of veins. This new interpretation opens up the possibility of like 15 kilometers of combined new and historical vein structures.
Okay, that is a big difference. It dramatically increases the area they could explore within those known systems.
Exactly. It's like realizing a known street connects to a whole network of unexplored avenues. Suddenly, the potential real estate is much larger.
And this potential isn't just at La Guitarra itself, right? The Tepic project is also part of this.
Right, Tepic is another project within their large land holding. And the early drill results from the central area there, highlighted in the presentation, look quite promising.
What did they find?
Out of 20 core holes, 17 hit sections with decent silver grades, over 75 grams per ton. And some really high-grade hits, too.
Yeah.
Like TDH-002 had 12.1 meters, averaging 194 grand silver equivalent. TDH-007 hit 2.55 meters at a very high 11.6 grand silver equivalent. And TDH-012 had 2 good intercepts.
Wow, over a kilogram of silver equivalent per pun in that one hit.
Yeah, those are attention-grabbing numbers. And the YouTube interview mentioned that the surface footprint of mineralization at Tepic appears to be about 5 times larger than at La Guitarra.
5 times larger. Okay, so huge exploration potential there, too.
Potentially, yes. It's still early days for Tepic relative to La Guitarra, but the initial signs are encouraging. Their current drill program is aiming to expand on these known structures and test new targets for an updated resource estimate.
Speaking of resources, the technical report mentions historical estimates.
It does, from Genco in 2009 and First Majestic in 2014. But there's a crucial caveat.
Which is?
The author of the 2022 report couldn't verify those old estimates because the original source data, the block models, weren't available. So you can't treat them as current NI 43101 compliant resources.
Okay, so they're historical context, not current bankable numbers.
Precisely. They give you an idea of what previous operators thought might be there, but they need to be updated with current drilling and standards.
That YouTube interview mentioned a figure, didn't it? Something about a resource upgrade.
Yes, it did. The interviewee mentioned 47 million ounces of silver equivalent across all categories.
47 million ounces. That sounds substantial.
It does. Now, importantly, they were clear this isn't yet a formal NI 43101 resource statement filed on SEDAR. Right.
But it suggests management is, let's say, comfortable with their internal calculations based on the data they have, including historical work and their own drilling. It signals their confidence level.
Okay, so we should watch for a formal resource update. What about getting the metal out? Metallurgy.
There's historical test work referenced, done by both Genco and First Majestic. Things like leach tests, grinding tests, settling tests, standard stuff.
Did they get good recoveries in the past?
Some of the design work aimed for pretty high recoveries, like 92% for silver and 90% for gold. The actual operating plant, the flotation mill run by First Majestic, reportedly achieved recoveries around 85% for silver and 79% for gold.
So decent recoveries are achievable with the existing plant type?
It appears so, yes.
And environmentally, socially? Any red flags?
The report suggests things are generally okay. Permits are in place. Relationships with communities and unions are described as businesslike and amicable.
That's good. There's a note about potential acid mine drainage from some sulfide waste rock in the future, but current levels are apparently within limits. They have requested an increase in their water use allowance, which is something to keep an eye on as they plan for restart.
Standard operational considerations, it sounds like.
Yeah.
Okay, let's shift to the money side. The First Majestic partnership is key here too, right? The loan.
Yes. First Majestic provided a U.S. $5 million loan. The terms are a 15% annual interest rate, which is, not cheap money,
No.
but it's a relatively short 2-year term starting May 2024. And the expectation, at least from that interview, seems to be that they can repay it relatively quickly once La Guitarra starts generating cash flow.
Right, using operational cash flow instead of, say, issuing more shares to pay it back.
And that seems to be the goal.
Yeah.
There's also the structure from the original all-share transaction when Sierra Madre acquired La Guitarra from First Majestic.
What are the key points there?
The shares First Majestic received have resale restrictions, phasing out over 6 to 24 months. But interestingly, if First Majestic's holding exceeds 19.9%, they have the right to distribute those excess shares to their own shareholders.
And those distributed shares wouldn't have the same selling restrictions.
Correct. So that could potentially increase the public float of Sierra Madre shares over time, depending on what First Majestic decides to do.
And First Majestic kept a royalty.
Yes, a 2% net smelter return, or NSR, royalty on all production from La Guitarra. Sierra Madre has the option to buy back half of that, 1%, for US $2 million.
Fairly standard arrangement in these kinds of deals.
It's very common, yeah. Gives the seller some ongoing upside participation.
Okay, so let's try to synthesize all this. Undervaluation, upside potential. What's the story the sources seem to be telling?
Well, the potential upside seems heavily tied to exploration success across that huge land package. You got the 28,000 hectares, the 59 kilometers of identified surface mineralization. The potential expansion of the La Guitarra veins, based on that new interpretation, and the promising early results from Tepic. There's a lot of blue sky potential there, geologically speaking.
And the strategy seems geared towards unlocking that potential.
Yes, the plan appears to be. Get La Guitarra back into production, quickly aiming for 2025, generate cash flow, and then use that cash flow to fund more aggressive exploration.
Which avoids having to constantly go back to the market for money and diluting existing shareholders.
That's the idea. Minimizing dilution is key for junior miners trying to build value. That potential 47 million ounce resource number, while informal, provides a target or a glimpse of what management thinks is there.
And restarting the mine ahead of schedule gives some confidence they can execute the operational side.
Exactly. Execution is critical. So, while formal resource updates are still needed, management seems confident. And you combine that with the tight share structure.
Right, with First Majestic, management, and institutions holding over 80%.
Yeah, a smaller free float can mean positive news, like a good resource report or strong production numbers, could have a more significant impact on the share price. And the potential for self-funded expansion is a compelling narrative.
Okay, so summing up the key takeaways from this deep dive on Sierra Madre, what stands out?
I'd say. Number one, the strategic shift towards near-term commercial production at La Guitarra to generate cash flow. That's a big step.
Okay.
Number two, the significant exploration potential, both at La Guitarra with a revised interpretation and at Tepic across a large prospective land package.
Right, the blue sky.
Number three, the strong backing and alignment with First Majestic Silver as a major shareholder and partner.
Yeah, that's crucial context.
And number four, the potential for that cash flow generation to fund growth and potentially re-rate the company valuation if they execute successfully.
So, thinking about all that, maybe a provocative thought to leave our listeners with.
Well, you look at the history of this district, the sheer amount of mineralization they've already identified on surface. It makes you wonder, doesn't it? Could Sierra Madre actually be sitting on the cusp of unlocking or perhaps rediscovering a truly major silver and gold district here?
And maybe tied to that, how much does having a major like First Majestic involved actually accelerate things? Does it provide a level of stability or technical backing that significantly changes the risk profile compared to a standalone junior?
Those are definitely key questions to ponder going forward.
Absolutely. And just before we wrap up, the important disclaimer. This deep dive was based on the publicly available information you shared with us, corporate presentations, technical reports, interviews, news releases. It is absolutely not financial advice.
Correct. Investing in junior mining stocks is inherently risky. There's exploration risk, operational risk, commodity price risk,
Permitting risk, political risk. The list goes on. So it is essential, absolutely essential, that you do your own thorough, independent research before making any investment decisions.
And always, always consult with a qualified financial advisor who understands your personal financial situation, your goals, and your tolerance for risk.
Couldn't have said it better myself.